Welcome to Always Honest, where two friends unpack the beauty and chaos of faith, family, and everything in between. One honest conversation at a time. Welcome back to Always Honest. Today we are going to talk about counseling, shame around counseling, and just our personal experience with it. Kalia, mood check. Where are you at on a scale of rainbows and sunshine to the clouds rolling in?
I think it's a little bit drizzly. I'm feeling a
Okay.
little overwhelmed with everything in life. Homeschooling and housework and all the stuff that school requires. There's always something going on at school and activities and work things, and it's just feeling like a lot.
What do you do to carve out your rest time?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I probably need to somehow figure out how to let some things go. And so I just don't know yet what that's going to be.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know.
That makes sense.
I just tend to take on things and then I get overwhelmed. So
Yeah. I know the girls just had like their Valentine's party at school, and I'm like, congrats to those moms that do like the homemade, like I'm a Walmart $2.99 box of like
I'm gonna
I'm
order
not
from
doing that.
Walmart and have it
Okay,
shipped to my house.
yeah. And I'm like, it's just like what feels right, I guess, to take on. And I'm like, I just don't, and I have the time. Like I don't homeschool, but I'm like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
So
and you
I feel
don't feel
lazy, but
guilty, right?
I don't feel guilty. I don't. No, I
Yeah.
really don't.
That's good.
So
Yeah.
I hope it's okay that I don't feel guilty. I don't
Of
know.
course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? Where are you on a
Mm.
scale of rainbows and sunshine to clouds rolling in?
I feel like I'm a partly sunny today.
Good.
I'm like, there's nothing, like part of me feels like really done with this weather and really ready for just, I don't know, something new. So I get kind of, I think I've cried, I think I've called my mom crying twice in like the last week
Oh.
of like, why do I just feel sad? And she's like, everyone kind of does this time of year. Like, you're not alone. And she made me feel way better. But it's true. Like, we just kind of, and just like getting stuck in those mundane, like, I mean, the dishes, and I don't know, like I do get in those funks of just like wanting to have some fun. Like I don't do many
Yeah.
fun things,
Yeah.
but
That's really important.
it is. And yeah, so we are working on a garden right now. My husband's been working his butt off building it, and so I've been doing like the planning of, where we're gonna plant things or like what
Nice.
all we are gonna plant. And so that's like I'm trying to focus on like some fun things that are coming in the near future.
Yeah.
But
I noticed it
yeah.
because I've been here in the dark, and so
Oh,
today seeing all the posts up, I was like,
Mhm.
oh, you guys have been working hard.
Yeah.
Our desire is that we are going to tear down the walls around counseling and shame
Mhm.
and change the stigma.
Mhm.
So they say 47% of people do not pursue counseling for fear of judgment. That's one of the barriers that keeps people from pursuing it.
Mhm.
What else do you think are barriers to people pursuing counseling for themselves?
I think one of them is just the misconception that you have to be in like a crisis to go to a counselor. That just the idea of like going to maintain a healthy mental health or marriage, or that it's just like, well, I don't really need it. But I have found through the large things and the small things that it's so helpful. So yeah, I think thinking you have to be in some terrible place um, is one of them.
What about cost?
Yeah, for sure. It can be expensive to see a good counselor.
People invest in what matters to them.
Yeah.
Someone might hire a personal trainer, might
Yeah.
get their coffee every day, might go to concerts.
True.
There's things that we spend our money on, but even though cost can be prohibitive, and I'm not saying that it's not legitimate because things add up, 42% of people were concerned about the cost. This is Americans. And 30% of people felt like they had mistrust of like maybe bad situations or
Yeah, the idea of like sharing such personal stuff with a stranger can, maybe that feels scary. And you do want to trust your counselor that they are professional and they aren't going to go share it or whatever. So I think I'm just going to add in, be picky about your counselor. Like, it's okay to be picky. It's okay to look around a little. And if you have one session with one and you're like, this does not feel right, like, go with that and find a new one. There are so many counselors out there, and I know personally, and I know people that have had good and bad experiences, and it's worth finding one that has your same beliefs and is just one that you feel is a good fit. So
Yeah. And I would say sometimes there are counselors that you work with for a while, and at a certain point you feel like they have pigeonholed you into a certain thing. I've had people who've had this experience, and it's like they were really helpful for a time, but they're only human.
mm,
And so maybe it's time to move on to somebody else who can broaden your perspective. Yeah, there's just a lot of, I mean, counselors are just humans,
yes.
and they come in a whole variety
Hmm.
of type of people and how they handle things.
Yeah.
We've had ones that we've gotten who were really just a sounding board, and that might be exactly what somebody wants, but I wanted somebody with a plan
Mm,
and just, yeah, like steps that they wanted to take,
hmm.
almost like a program or something, like a direction.
Yeah.
And we've had people that that were just there, and
Yeah.
I went, this is not a good fit for us. They're
Yeah.
wonderful, nice person, but it was not a good fit.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I
Yeah.
don't want to denigrate. I feel bad like saying, I don't want to be negative about people that we met with, but
No, it's just the reality. Like, it's just
yeah.
because you have the word counselor as your job doesn't mean you're the right fit for everyone. Like, it just, different personalities. I am someone that's very sensitive. So, like, I need a counselor that is definitely like going to push me in the right direction, but that is gentle. Like, I like someone that would be just like kind of rude and direct. I wouldn't feel safe with them.
Mm.
So, personalities are also different too.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And different specialties.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
people don't have experience in trauma
100%.
or with excuse me, with kids
Yeah.
or with marriage,
Hmm. Hmm.
and so those can be different, yeah, factors that affect their perspective.
Hmm. Hmm. One other little thing that might keep people from going is the fear of like going in person and making it like, it might sound like a big task to take time off work or drive somewhere or whatever. You can't find one local. And I personally have only ever, that's not true. In the past I did go in person, but the past few years I've only gone, it's just been virtual, and it's been so
I didn't
wonderful.
realize that.
So
Mine is too.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
but I
don't.
didn't realize that about you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for
Okay.
some reason I thought you went.
Oh yeah, no, because my counselor's he's not in this town. And so yeah, just knowing that there's so many virtual options now where you can be in the comfort of your own home, and um that's helpful for me. That makes it feel less pressure and stuff. So
And actually, it's it's really nice if they're not in your town, because we did have somebody who our kids went to school with them,
oh,
and that just felt like a conflict of
too
interest.
close. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, mine is virtual. I know he's around here, but anyway, yeah, I love meeting
Hmm.
virtual.
Hmm.
And I even did EMDR with him,
Mm.
which some of my friends were like, "How do you do EMDR virtually?" And I
Hmm.
didn't know, but then we did it, and it was very effective and very helpful.
It's amazing.
And yeah, we
Yeah.
never met in person. And I think for the counselor, it's kind of a safety issue. If I
Mm.
was counseling people, I think I would prefer,
Really?
yeah, virtual. Yeah,
Yeah, in
I
case
mean,
they get really mad, blow up.
I mean,
There's a screen.
it helps if they, yeah, you just turn off the screen and they can't follow
Mm.
you home. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that was like a genuine concern that I had one time. Like I was
Hmm.
freaking out.
Hmm. Hmm.
Thought
When you were counseling
when I was
someone.
counseling
Yeah.
somebody, and I had it in my head that they like followed me home, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
kind of we were freaking out.
Hmm. Hmm.
So part of the reason that situation that I had with counseling somebody and being really afraid, I was counseling through our church, and I realized at that point, after doing it with a few situations, that I was in over my head, and the training that I had gotten taught me how to address life issues, but not any of the logistics of what's the counselee's rights, what are my rights, when do I need to report something to authorities, how do I terminate counseling in an appropriate,
Yeah.
respectful way.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have the support or knowledge, and I was really frustrated at that point with my training. So I think that it's really important to get proper training, and sometimes when it's done through the church, I don't want to like be really negative about the church, but I realized that I was in over my head and I didn't get the proper training. And so I mean, that's just kind of my experience with counseling that's not in a professional setting, is that a lot of times there is a lack of training, especially in specialties like trauma or diagnoses. I think it's really important to have a professional, somebody who's experienced and has gotten the schooling on that.
Yeah.
But there's a place for counseling among friends and getting the thoughts and wisdom and sharing your experiences and opening up to people. Like, there's always a place for that. But something that I learned through my training, the guy who founded it, his name was Jay Adams, and in one of his books he said that he always has a desk between him and the counselee, and that it's really important for establishing that relationship, that there's sort of a hierarchy and we're here for a reason, because I think that those lines can start to get blurred when you're meeting with a friend, because then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm oversharing, or I'm always the one who's asking for help and support, and you can become self-conscious. Maybe that person does get irritated or overwhelmed, but when you have a professional setting where you have established, I'm going to get help and support from you, and during this amount of time, then it just frees up both people to really focus on the issues and the help that person needs.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's important to distinguish family and friends from professional help.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of times people say, I have a mentor, or I have this person that I can talk to. And again, like, that can be really helpful, but there is a time and a place for professional counseling help.
Yeah, and you'll find that having the wisdom from someone that isn't in your family or friend group is so helpful, because they don't have the that personal relationship with that other person. So it's like that third party coming in. It's like
Unbiased.
yes, exactly. So it's healthy advice, because they're not leaning one way, because they're
Yeah. So it's nothing against friends and family, because that support is vital and so important, but there needs to be a boundary, a healthy boundary.
I cried at your house. When was that? Like a week ago? Like, it was like that 20 minutes that I just like shared with you a story, and it was like, and I felt so good to like get it out with you. So it's like, it's so important to have those friends that you feel safe with. But like you said, a balance of like, okay, I'm needing someone to check with me weekly or every other week, monthly, whatever. That's like a professional, so you're not dumping everything on your friends, I feel like.
And then at some point, if you are meeting with someone who's a friend, at some point they might feel like, I'm done, but you're not done. You're still needing, because I shared how I did get counseling in a more of a church setting, and at a certain point it was like we weren't meeting anymore and we were friends now. And then if I do need to call you in an emergency situation, like, how does this work? And I felt completely lost and kind of just dropped. And again, I'm not saying that it's anybody's fault, like, but because that relationship is not established, of like, we're meeting for counseling for this long, and that I just think those parameters are really important for setting expectations. So there's no hurt feelings, and there's just so many things that can that can go wrong.
Mhm. Yeah, no, for sure.
So, were there things that kept you from getting counseling? And then once you finally decided to, what was the thing that changed your mind?
Yeah, so I've been in counseling, like active counseling now. Like I said, I've been in and out of counseling since I was a child, honestly, like little spurts of it. But then I went years without it, but I've been in counseling now like I want to say 4 years at least. So, just 4 years ago, it wasn't actually talked about this much, I don't think. Like now you see all the influencers, like um
Well, I think after 2020,
oh,
it
true.
became a
Yes.
huge
Yes, after COVID. But like
focus.
uh I guess what I'm trying to say is when I first seeked it out. Is that a word?
Saw
Thank you.
it.
Saw it didn't sound right. Sought it out. It was still kind of like embarrassing, I think, or like not a lot of people I knew were getting it, so it was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be the one, like, I need the help," or, like, it was a sign of weakness and embarrassment, and I was like so, yeah, I mean, this is in the depths of I began to I mean, just to back up a little bit, I guess, when my daughter was 1, my oldest daughter was 1, I started battling anxiety like I had never experienced before, panic attacks, couldn't go anywhere, like, it was just horrible, and um, worked a lot of it out through just like friends and support, God, and then got in a healthier place. And then through COVID, everything shut down. I wasn't getting the exposure I needed, going places or whatever, and it got the worst it had ever been. So, um, again, through this time, it was like, I can do it without counseling. People would kind of mention it like, have you thought about seeing a counselor? And it's like, yeah, but it just felt like a lot of work to share this with and very vulnerable, like who would my counselor be? Like, I don't know, it just felt hard to make that first step. And then I shared with you one specific thing that I really dealt with, that I really struggled with was my husband leaving for work. And that's obviously not something that's easy to struggle with because he has to go to work. I don't work, so like who's going to make the money? And it got to the point, so my husband works twice a week for 24 hours because he's a firefighter, and there would be so much build up to him leaving for work, and I would just feel like I can't do it. You can't leave. I'm going to just have panic attacks all day, like you can't go. And it was like every shift was just like, okay, how am I going to do this? Whatever. And he'd leave and my heart would be pounding in bed, just like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And I'd get through it or whatever. But one particular morning, I remember I just worked myself up so much to the point of I am grabbing his keys. You can't leave. You can't leave. And oh my gosh, I'm not gonna cry. I don't want to cry already on the podcast, but I like looked. It's 5:30 in the morning, and I look, and my children have woken up at this point. They're staring at me in the doorway because I'm like by the door, and they're like, "Mom, like what's wrong?" And I'm like, it was just this like, it was like looking in the mirror almost. It was like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing? Like, and Scott's looking at me like, I don't know what to do. Like I've got to go to work, and so he went to work. I grabbed the girls and I went in my bed, and it was like it was just, I guess, the low point where you're like, either I get help or this is not probably going to get better for a while. Like, it's okay, Madeline. Like, you are broken. You need help. And when I tell you, like, the first counseling that I got, so a family member of mine knew a counselor. I knew she was a Christian. And I mean, it was hard, like, leading up to, like, calling her, making the appointment was not easy, like, I was super nervous and whatever, but just that even first episode, just that first appointment, I was like, "Wow, why have I been putting this off?" Like, getting to share it with someone who knew how my brain was, like, reacting and like how you said, like, a plan, she was like, it was very obvious she was confident, she knew how to help me, and it was such a big relief, like, oh, okay, like I don't have to go through this alone. And I wasn't alone. I had my friends and family, but like having a professional come in, I don't know, it was just like life changing for me. And it's not been like like I said, I've been in it 4 years, so it's been a journey for sure, but I couldn't imagine if I hadn't have reached out to her. So, yeah,
Yeah, that gave you a lot
long
of hope.
story, but yeah, for sure. Um, and I gathered so much good information from just even the first couple sessions, and I was like, it gave me hope. Exactly. I remember leaving one of the sessions, and I was like in such a good mood, like it's gonna be okay, And I mean, it's still not like I'm still not where I want to be if I'm being honest, like, but I'm not where I used to be, and
Yeah.
that is a good feeling. So
Yeah. When did
yeah.
you start to notice that it was helping?
I mean, I would say like little things eased up right away. Like just because you bring truth into all the lies in your head, and so even just like little things would get lifted. I don't remember like when it got easier for like Scott to leave. But it did, and I remember like I would notice like, oh, he works tomorrow and I'm not freaking out.
Mm.
Like, phew, and better on him. Like it was hard on him. So yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you just start having progress, and it's not until you are living it and then you just look back going, oh, I haven't done that in a while.
Yeah.
Or I
Yeah.
haven't felt that in a while.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you realize that something changed
Mm-hmm.
inside. We didn't discuss this, but one of the questions that I was going to ask is, or I thought we could discuss is, how do people know whether they need counseling or not? Like if somebody's listening and they're thinking,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need help, I can handle it on my own, because that is one of the barriers, is I think I can do this on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say would be a clue for people that maybe it's time to consider getting therapy?
Mm-hmm.
And I like the word therapy
Mm.
lately better than counseling, because I feel like counsel is like, it's kind of like, hey, what should I do? Like, I need to know your opinion. Should I take this job? Shouldn't I take this job? I feel like that's kind of, to me, that's
Okay.
counseling, but therapy is like healing.
Healing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
How would you know? I feel like, I mean, the Holy Spirit is so kind, and like if God sees that maybe that would be something helpful for us, I feel like he'll put it on our heart, and like you might just start thinking about it of, oh, that might be helpful, but no, and I don't want to or whatever. But if you just feel like the prompting at all, I guess, I would pray about it, and I would just like yeah, ask for wisdom. But I think if you're finding yourself like in any sort of rut, like whether it's motherhood or being a wife or being maybe just friendships are like really hard right now and you don't know how to make a friend, or you feel like all your friends are hanging out with everyone but you, or just like any of those life things. I
or it's
don't
starting to affect your relationships,
Yes. Yeah, if it's
or
a yeah.
if you're having difficulty coping with
Mhm.
life
Yeah.
and just your general quality of life, would you
Yeah.
say, if you feel like, well, majority of the days I'm not happy, or
Yeah.
the majority of the days I'm not, fill in the blank, comfortable, satisfied,
Yeah.
any of those things,
Mhm.
then maybe it's time to change something.
Yeah. So, was it hard for you to initially ask for help via a counselor? And when did you kind of realize I'm going to go for this?
I did go in high school. I want to say my junior or senior year. I said, Mom, I want to see a counselor. I was just feeling like I couldn't sort out my feelings and
Mm-hmm.
was feeling overwhelmed, and I didn't know what to expect, and I was very ashamed. I felt like I'm a weirdo, like for
Yeah.
sure, like
Yeah.
very embarrassed. Like when you find yourself like shopping at Kmart and you see somebody else from school and you're like, like I
Yeah.
didn't,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was so embarrassed.
Kmart. Oh my gosh. It's funny.
Yeah, I was so embarrassed to be there. I didn't want anyone to see, because I would drive myself there, but
Mm.
I didn't want anyone to see me going or coming from. There's a big sign like, Christian counseling,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
um, so I felt very ashamed, and I also felt like I didn't know what to expect. I'm
Yeah.
like, are we just gonna talk about stuff? And in hindsight, I can see where the counselor was going with things, but at the time I was like, I don't think this is doing anything. I
Mm.
think she was kind of on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
She picked up on some things, but I think I graduated and I just left home and moved out and I don't know, stopped going. Um, and then I studied counseling because that was always my goal. I always wanted to be a counselor. And I don't know how much to get into all of those details. I'm always bad at like oversharing.
No, share.
Well, I don't want to go too far back. But anyway, I went to school for counseling. I originally was on the like, I want to do Christian psychology. It's like a blend. And then I was convinced to go full on into no, just biblical counseling. So I went way over on that spectrum. And on that spectrum, I don't want to misrepresent it, but in my opinion, the views are there's in my experience, in my opinion, of what biblical counseling is about, there's a huge hesitancy toward psychotropic drugs. So any antidepressants, any prescription medicine, there's a huge resistance to that. And also the belief is that it should be done through the church, among the church body, that's the proper place for counseling. So I went full on into that belief. I was very then against secular therapy, or even I'm forgetting the word, integrated counseling, where it's Christian and secular combined. So we would literally critique in class what is wrong with these other types of therapies. So ironic. One of the things that I did a presentation on, like mocking these therapies. One of them was like art therapy, and we're just kind of like snickering the whole art therapy. And I'm like, my daughter is literally in art therapy right now, and it is wonderful. So anyway, I just went full on to that side. Then fast forward to where I need the help in our, becoming a mom, our marriage, just needing support. I tried counseling through the church. I tried that avenue, and it was just lacking. There was a lot of hurt that came out of that, a lot of judgment, a lot of literally ignoring some cries for help that I would put out there, and like no response. So anyway, it was not a good, healthy experience. And so I sought out a counselor that's a Christian, but like through a firm, like a Christian counseling firm, and just a world of a difference immediately, like just the professional level. And again, I don't want to be so like negative on churches and all of that, but
that was your experience, though.
And that was my experience.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can say that because I was so in that world and so believing that and doing that I see the danger in it, like literally dangerous, like destructive, for people. And so I kind of am speaking out against it, like please get professional help, because some of these people just aren't trained in certain things. And I think they have the best of intentions. I do. And like I said before in another episode, I think that biblical counseling is often misused. Anyway, what I was saying is that, I know I'm coming down hard on biblical counseling. I honestly think that if it was done properly, that it would look really similar to what integrated counseling looks like. Because the whole goal of biblical counseling is to get at the root of the problem. And there's all kinds of proverbs that we use and reference, which is, he who gives an answer before he hears is folly and shame to him. So in other words, ask questions, like just listen. Like that's the thing that we said in another episode. I think episode 1 is just listen. And I think a lot of times what happens is that we want to give an answer, and biblical counselors can be like excited. They're going to hate me. They can be excited that I have the answer. Like I know what can help you, but like there needs to just be listening and empathy and not judgment. And if the time comes for someone to say, what do you think about this, counselor? What should I do? Even that, sometimes really good counselors are hesitant to literally say you should do this,
Sure.
because
Mhm.
a lot of the goal
Mhm.
is to help people think through
Mhm.
their own thoughts, to
Yeah.
process it themselves,
Yeah.
to come to their own conclusions, and you just kind of guide them,
Mhm.
as opposed to just saying, look, you need to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, you might have those
Yeah.
answers, but guiding them to it and not just telling them.
Yeah. I was gonna say too, just being prayerful about who to share things with, because I think that um it's such a blessing to like be in a church where you do have people you trust, or like, let's say your marriage is on the rocks and you're like, I don't know what to do. Like, to have someone like a pastor who you could go to, that's great. But I guess just, being prayerful, because I know I've shared things with people and then wished I hadn't. And I'm like, maybe I should have prayed
Yeah.
about that first
Oh,
rather
yeah.
than just like dumping something and then you
Yeah.
can't take it back.
Yeah.
So like just being aware of when and who to let into the really deep stuff
Well, and that might be
is
another reason to get a proper counselor, because you won't find yourself dumping
regretting
on
it. Yeah, they're not
random
going to tell
people.
anyone. If they're professional, they shouldn't tell anyone, right? And you're paying them, so it's like you just get to sit here and listen to me.
Well, and maybe you can hold it in instead of
Yeah.
telling some random person. You're like, I'm going to wait until I talk to my counselor instead of telling this.
Yeah, because you know that you have that.
You have that
Yeah.
outlet. Yeah. I was going to say, though, because I've been so down on like our experiences, we did actually have a really great experience with a couple from the church who at 10 o'clock at night, I called them
Mm.
and they came over. And these are probably people who are in bed by 7 o'clock. Like, they were the sweetest. They went through like a methodical thing with us, and that was actually really helpful. And that
Yeah.
was through the church. So
Yeah. You
I'm not saying
can
it's all
have positive
bad.
experiences,
Yes.
but you're saying be careful.
Be
Like, don't
careful.
assume just because this person is through the church that it's someone you should be going to. Just be careful, be
Yeah.
wise, and be prayerful. Like,
And don't be afraid or resistant of things outside of
yeah,
the church.
yeah, for sure. God uses, I mean, again, like, I definitely wouldn't, I would never advise someone to go to a counselor that's not a Christian, because I wouldn't trust their advice if they don't believe in Jesus. That's just my opinion. But so, like I said, you can be picky, but we don't want to get in that headspace of like, oh, you don't go to my church, I'm not listening to your advice. It's like, well, hold on. The whole world is the church, right? Like, or the body of Christ is the
The
church.
invisible church.
Yeah. So like, we don't want to get legalistic where it's like only people that go to my church I'm
Yeah.
going to get advice from. Like, no,
Yeah.
I don't like that. So yeah, I wanted to add into, as like I told you, we are so pro counseling, but I don't want it to come across like we're forgetting who our ultimate counselor is, Jesus. And I know I've found myself kind of getting a little bit of a check of like, wait, am I getting a little too reliant on my counselor versus going to Jesus? Because do I believe God uses people? Absolutely. Like, you can't deny that, right? But do I believe he wants to be like our first and foremost that we go to? Yes. So I would never recommend like put Jesus on the back burner and go to counseling. Like, he has to stay first. And like, as much as counseling has helped me, I give Jesus all the credit for healing me, right? Like, every little healing milestone is like, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Like, you might have used this person, but the healing comes from him. So and just remembering, I don't know, just like going to him. And it's hard, I know, because he isn't just like speaking back like a person is, but he's so listening and he wants to be part of the story. So I don't know. I didn't want to
it's
come
always a
across like,
balance. You don't want to swing the pendulum too far one way.
right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kind of like with working out. It's like you don't get a pill that's going to solve everything. It all goes together. It all works together. Yeah.
Hey guys, this discussion is too good. We have lots more to share, so join in next week for part 2 of this conversation as we continue to chat about the wisdom of good counsel. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you guys soon. Bye!